this veteran saw humans aboard a giant UFO that took him up in the desert. His name is Stephen Digna, and he is one of the speakers at Stephen Greer's UFO Summit. And it's a really interesting story, so let's dive into it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, please share on social media, and comment below to let me know what you think. Okay, so, I have a lot of beef with Stephen Greer. I don't really like Stephen Greer. I think he spreads disinformation among the UFO community. For example, that there are no alien abductions, something you will see him repeat again here. And, he spreads toxicity among the community, but he also has done some good, like his former UFO summit that he did in 2001, as well as promoting the protocols of CE5 and, popularizing CE5. I think that direct human-initiated contact with the phenomenon may be our best bet to advance the cause of disclosure. I don't think we're going to really get disclosure probably until the beings want us to have disclosure. And if we come to them directly and say, hey guys, here we are, let's have a drink, then maybe we'll get somewhere. So I do think that Stephen Greer has some merit and some value to add to the UFO community, but he does continue to spread his narratives and his agendas, and that is repeated again in this press conference, unfortunately. I think they probably only picked the people to speak that, dovetailed with his agenda. But, that aside, I think the speakers themselves are legitimate, and their claims should be noted and investigated and taken to heart, because I do think these are truth tellers that are telling their truth and that are relaying real accounts. So let's dive into Mr. Digna's story. I forget what rank he is. He was in the military. He had one sighting. There was a military sighting, and he was told that was one of ours. So that's interesting. And then after that, at some point, he and his wife were driving in the desert, and he had another encounter. Experiencers are often repeat experiencers. In fact, that's pretty much the rule. In his case, I don't know what's going on, because one of the people that he encountered told him he wasn't supposed to be there. So, it's interesting that he was able to have these two experiences that both seem to have been accidents. That's like lightning striking twice. So anyway, it's a weird situation, but whatever. I think that he is telling the truth. And and by the way, he does have an injury. He has a brain injury. I think he's been through a lot of trauma, and so if he looks a little off, that's why. And anyway, but I'm not going to play his whole segment, but I will play a few minutes of what he had to say. He and his wife have driven out into the desert. They've seen a UFO. His wife has been frozen in place. He goes out, touches the UFO, and then he looks up and he sees a bigger UFO that has been cloaked by some cloaking device in the air. Okay, I'll let him take it from there.
I kind of pressed off the vehicle. The vehicle was stable. I mean, this thing was locked in position. It's not like Star Wars when you jump off of something and it moves. This thing was solidly locked in place, solid. I seen a shape right here through my elbow as I leaned my face down, and I could see up into the sky above my car a mirage, which was like a silhouette or a heat foil on the road, and the stars shimmered in a straight line, and at a very long distance there was a curve. So it seemed to be curved. Either way, right when that ripple hit in the sky, the stars then refixed back into place. I realized I was looking at a cloaking device on a very, very, very large craft that seemed to encompass the whole desert area that I was under. At that moment in time, I glanced and panned my view just to try to get fathom the dimensions of this craft, and I saw a giant bright white light floating in the sky, and it was a hangar bay door opened. Couldn't see doors. It was just a bright white light, and it looked like a window floating through the sky, maybe even a portal. People might from a distance think, hey, that's a portal, but I obviously knew it was a craft. So this is a hangar bay door, and there was a female silhouette standing there. At that moment in time, I heard that same voice, and it said very clearly, "You were not supposed to see that. That you weren't supposed to see it." All of a sudden, I began feeling a thud, thud, thud sound. This was a resonant frequency being pulsed through my body. As I felt this, it increased in speed. Thud, 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 thud. It was very rapid. You could see the same type of thing in the movie Interstellar. Very similar when he falls through the black hole. Too similar. Too similar. As this thud resonated in my body, I felt my molecular, or my cells, maybe the quantum level of my body, feel like it was being resonated. I felt like maybe I'm going to be microwaved or something to that nature. Either way, I seen some bands coming through. I began lifting up off the ground. My vehicle began lifting with me also. As this happened, my body tipped back, and I could see the underbelly of the craft. You're going to see that design right in front of you. The rectangular shape right in the center there looked like a docking socket for an electrical port. If you're going to take a big male end, this would be the female receiving end for an electrical charger. To skip through that, there were some there's some highlighted parts here, and as you can read them there, I'm going to let you read that for yourself, just for time's sake. However, as this happened, instantaneously I cued in, and I was flat on my back, and I was staring up at the ceiling, and my vision cued into a very, very bright white light. My vision panned over, and there was my wife flat on her back on a table. It was smaller than the table I was laying on, slightly lowered, and she still had the same exact expression on her face, like she was screaming no. However, she was no longer stuck in the running position. She was flat. As I panned a little more in front of me to kind of gauge where I was at, and this all happened in milliseconds, guys. This was, oh crap, what's happening? So this is a very short encounter here. As I panned over, I saw my vehicle with the right passenger tires end lifted up. I saw some people in some white suits, fully garmented masks with some breathing apparatuses. They were working on the vehicle. Slightly next to that was a strange blue rack that looked like it could have been an automotive rack. Could have had another purpose. That was my quick assumption. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. So after that had happened, I saw a female right next to me. She was taking some samples from me. It was a human female. She had red hair. She had very fair skin. And after that moment, I also, as I panned over, I could see the window and the desert behind me. I realized we were not in space. I could see the desert floor. I could see the exact two rock formations and one far off in the distance. So this is pinpointed by GPS coordinates. So after that, I panned a little more over, and as I seen this open up, and the bay door behind her open, or maybe just transparent, and I could see out. I also seen that craft right here docked in the ship, and that came through me after trying to get these schematics down on paper while talking to Michael Scratch. So thank you, sir. This man went through PTSD with me, so thank you, Doctor.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There are obviously a great deal more to all these accounts. I'm sorry to have to cut that short, but we're sort of at the past our time we were going to wrap it up. But I will tell you that this is not atypical. The craft he was referring to are ours. That was Raytheon objects. Those are, and he said, yes, they are. His key point needs to be made, absolutely. They have been used in simulated quote-unquote abductions. In this case, a very decorated and heroic man was essentially tortured by this. This is a crime that must be investigated and brought to justice quickly.
As you can see, Stephen Greer definitely is advancing his agenda with this fellow's story, Digna's story, saying that, there are no alien abductions and that this was a human-created event. However, I think it's worth pointing out that Digna's memories of being aboard that ship are very brief, at least from what we can see. Maybe there is an extended version of his story that I need to see, where he was able to wander around the ship and have more experiences. I would like to see that. But this is a very large UFO, and there are people, humans that he is interacting with, that are telling him he is not supposed to be there. So this was not a planned abduction. So this does not conform to the normal abduction phenomenon, which refutes Greer's claims that abductions are staged by humans pretending to be ETs. This was not a planned abduction. This was not a staged abduction. And these humans were not pretending to be ETs, which is something that Greer says often. That is his narrative. That is what he believes, or the idea that he wants to advance, that all ETs are friendly, and that all the harm that has been done, the abduction experiences, the negative abduction experiences, have been perpetuated by humans. Now, in countless experience or accounts, when they are abducted by the beings, by the non-humans, many of them will see humans working with the beings, military types and officials. So I suspect that's more to the truth than what Greer is saying. That there is a alliance, there is a working relationship between beings and humans of the control group. And this has been going on for a long time. If we do have a giant UFO that Digna saw, that's cloaked and everything, then we didn't arrive at that technology ourselves. I don't think that we could have arrived at that technology by reverse engineering a UFO. That would be like a caveman reverse engineering a cell phone. I don't think that's possible. The beings helped us do that. That is what the research that I've shared with you seems to show. For example, Bill Olhouse's story that I just posted yesterday. And there are plenty of others as well. It's annoying to see Greer use these witnesses to advance his own agenda, but I'm trying to remove that from the equation and just focus on what Digna said. One of the interesting parts about his tale is that the people that were aboard the ship were doing something to his car. They took his car up into the UFO and were doing something with it. What in the world were they doing to his car? I'm really curious. And, what was his abduction experience like? Did they probe him? Did they probe his wife? Did they do experiments on him? I really need to see his story in full. Did they use memory wipe on him? Often in the MILABs, the military abductions that are strictly the military, they use technology very similar to what the beings use. And they even use mind wipe technology. However, I'm not convinced that this giant UFO was staffed solely by people. I think it's very possible that there were beings aboard the ship as well. But if not, what was this ship for? What was it doing? I mean, it's a giant UFO flying around our skies. What was its purpose? It's clearly not for military purposes. Otherwise, there would not be war situations that are in dispute right now that are could have been resolved much quicker and more in our favor if we were using this technology. And historically, if we've had this technology since the 50s or 60s, which seems to be the case, we would not have lost Vietnam, etc., if we had been using this in war. So we seem to be using this for some other purpose. I believe that we are using this with our alliance with the beings, whichever beings they are. There's different races out there, and I really hope the control group allied themselves with the right one. That is the one that is benevolent to humankind, because if we're working with one group of beings, but we're shooting at UFOs at the same time, that seems to suggest that we are fighting one group and we are working with one group, or multiple groups. So could we be being used as pawns in some sort of cosmic war? Is that what these ships are doing? They're fighting races of aliens that are opposed to the races that we're dealing with? According to the Eisenhower story, the most popular narrative, he made a deal to work with the Greys, which were not super friendly to us, but were willing to give us technology. And he, discarded an alliance with the Nordics, who were benevolent and wise and wanted to establish an enlightened interaction with us, but they wanted us to ditch the nukes. And he wasn't willing to do that, so the story goes. And I don't blame him, really. The nukes had just ended World War II, so he was with, it was reasonable of him, I think, in that time, in that era, to think as he did. However, if he did make an agreement with the Greys that were not super friendly to us and that were using us for their own purposes, that's not great. So if we're helping the Greys or whatever group of being we're working with, what exactly are we doing with this fancy technology? We're flying around in giant UFOs. There's all sorts of stuff going on. We definitely seem to be assisting the beings in abductions. And the abduction phenomenon is massive. According to the Roper poll in the 90s from John Mack, Bud Hopkins, and David Jacobs, it indicated that 2% of the worldwide populace are contactees or abductees. And David Jacobs has since said they actually they had to whittle that number down to 2%, not to freak everybody out. It was actually closer to 5%. So whether it's 2 or 5, we've got tens or hundreds of millions of people that are abductees and contactees. That is a massive, massive project that the beings are doing, and it seems like we are helping them do it. And that is probably what this technology is for and what we are doing in these UFOs. At least that's my take. Let me know your take in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. And if you could share this video on social media, that would be super helpful. If you want to support the channel and allow me to spend more time on this channel and bring you the videos that you deserve, you can leave a super chat. You can buy one of my books. I'm a science fiction fantasy writer. There's a link in the description. You can also use PayPal, and I think that's about it. And that would be super helpful. That will keep this channel going and allow me to spend more time on it. So I really appreciate your help in that. Thank you very much. And there are plenty of other videos for you to check out on the channel. And I will see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road signing out.